The skies over Washington, D.C. darkened as the alien vessel descended through the clouds. People gathered in the streets, some afraid, others excited, all of them staring upward with open mouths. News cameras pointed at the sky, broadcasting the moment to billions around the world. This was the day humanity had both dreamed of and feared for centuries. First contact with an alien civilization. Jack Miller stood on the special platform built for this occasion, his hands clasped behind, his back to hide their slight trembling. At 45 years old, the former Marine had faced many challenges, but nothing like this. Next to him, Melissa Green nervously adjusted her glasses. At 32, she was the youngest person on the diplomatic team, but her work on the translation matrix made her presence essential. "Do you think they'll look like the movies?" Melissa whispered. Jack gave a small smile. "Probably not. But whatever they look like, remember, we represent all of humanity today." The alien ship settled on a large landing area. It's metallic, surface reflecting the sunlight that broke through the clouds. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, a doorway appeared in the side of the vessel. The crowd fell silent as the first alien emerged. Ambassador Z.K. Tar of the Valerian Empire stood nearly 7 feet tall, with blue-tinted skin that seemed shimmer. 4 arms extended from a slender torso, and large, black eyes dominated a face with no visible nose. Behind the ambassador came 6 other aliens, each representing a different species from what they called the Galactic Council. Jack stepped forward as planned. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I welcome you to our world." The translation device Melissa had created interpreted his words, converting them into the musical tones of the Council's common language. Ambassador Z.K. Tar tilted his head, listening, then responded in a voice like flowing water. "The Galactic Council acknowledges humanity. We come to observe, evaluate, and classify your species according to galactic standards." Over the next 3 months, the aliens studied human civilization thoroughly. They visited cities, factories, schools, and laboratories. They reviewed human history, science, art, and warfare. Jack and Melissa accompanied them everywhere, answering endless questions and trying to present humanity in the best possible light. They seemed particularly interested in our conflicts, Jack noted one evening as he and Melissa reviewed their notes in a government office. Melissa nodded, looking troubled. "And they keep mentioning our physical limitations compared to their species. I don't think they're impressed by us. We've accomplished a lot in our short history," Jack argued. "They need to understand how quickly we advance." On a rainy Tuesday morning, the council representatives called for a formal meeting to deliver their evaluation. World leaders gathered in the United Nations headquarters in New York. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Humans had dreamed of joining a galactic community for generations. Ambassador Z. Qatar stood before the assembly. His forearms held in what the humans had learned was a formal posture. The room fell silent as the alien began to speak. After thorough evaluation, the Galactic Council has classified humanity as a Class 4 species, limited development path. Your species is physically frail, technologically immature, and culturally prone to violence. Your potential for advancement is considered restricted. Gasps filled the room. Jack felt his face grow hot with anger and embarrassment. Beside him, Melissa's fingers flew across her tablet, analyzing every word of the translation. The ambassador continued. "Earth will be placed under standard quarantine protocols. Limited supervised contact will be permitted, but humans are restricted. From interstellar travel, technology sharing will be minimal. This classification may be reviewed in 100 standard galactic cycles." Jack stepped forward, breaking protocol. "Ambassador, with respect, we request reconsideration. Humanity has moved from simple tools to space exploration in a fraction of the time taken by many advanced species. Our adaptability is precisely the concern, interrupted Z. Katar. Your species advances in unpredictable patterns, often driven by conflict. The Council has observed 17,000 species across the galaxy. Our classification system is not subject to appeal. The meeting ended in shocked silence. Outside, rain poured down as Jack and Melissa walked slowly to their vehicle. 100 galactic cycles, Melissa said quietly. That's nearly 200 Earth years. They're putting us in a box and forgetting about us. Jack stared out at the rain. They think we're too violent, too unpredictable, but they're making a mistake. The following day, a smaller private meeting was arranged at Jack's request. Only he and Melissa represented humanity, meeting with Ambassador Z. Katar alone. I wanted to understand more about our classification, Jack said calmly, though he felt anything but calm inside. We've overcome countless challenges in our history. Surely that demonstrates our potential. The alien regarded him with those large black eyes. For a moment, Z. Katar seemed to hesitate. Then, speaking more quietly than usual, the ambassador sighed. It is not your weaknesses that concern the Council, Jack Miller. It is your strengths. I don't understand, Melissa said, leaning forward. Your kind learns too quickly, Z. Katar whispered. Where other species follow predictable development paths over thousands of years, humans adapt and change course constantly. The Council fears what you might become. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. So our classification isn't about protection or guidance. It's about containment. The ambassador's skin shimmered, which they had learned indicated emotional response. A Council values stability above all. Unpredictable elements are ... controlled. After the ambassador left, Jack and Melissa sat in silence for several minutes. They're afraid of us, Melissa finally said, wonder in her voice. Jack nodded slowly. And maybe they should be. They think they've put us in our place, but they've just shown us exactly what we need to do. The next day, the alien vessel rose into the clouds, leaving behind a changed Earth. The quarantine boundaries were established. Humanity could venture no further than Mars. Council observers would visit periodically to ensure compliance. 2. The galaxy at large, humans were now officially classified as inferior. But as Jack stood watching the ship disappear, he felt a strange sense of purpose. They think they know us, he said to Melissa. They have no idea what humans can do when underestimated. Melissa smiled. Should I tell the president you have a plan? Tell her we all need to have a plan, Jack replied. The Council gave us a challenge today, not a sentence. If they think we're inferior now, just wait until they really need us. As the sky returned to its normal blue, Jack made a silent promise to himself and to humanity. This classification wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning. 27 years passed since the day humanity received its Class 4 designation from the Galactic Council. The world had changed in ways few could have predicted. Nations that once fought each other now worked together with singular purpose. The official stance toward the Council was one of respectful compliance, but behind closed doors, humanity refused to accept their assigned place in the galaxy. Susan Harris walked through the underground research facility built beneath the Rocky Mountains. At 34, she had spent her entire adult life working on the secret programs her father had helped start. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes missed nothing as she inspected the latest prototype. Will it work this time? Asked Daniel Wright, who walked beside her. The tall, broad-shouldered man had been her friend since childhood, and now commanded the Earth Defense Force, a military organization unknown to the Council observers. The simulations look promising, Susan replied. We've made adjustments based on the data from the last test. This time, I think we've solved the power distribution problem. They stopped before a large window overlooking a testing chamber. Inside stood what appeared to be a simple metal frame, about the size of a doorway. This unimpressive device represented humanity's greatest achievement since the Council's departure, a working prototype of shield technology that operated on principles the alien species had never discovered. The Council inspection team arrives next week, Daniel reminded her. We need to make sure all of this is properly hidden. Susan nodded. President Warren has already arranged for them to visit the public research centers. They'll see exactly what they expect to see: humans making slow, modest progress within our restrictions. President Lisa Warren had been elected 5 years earlier on a platform of quiet resistance. Under her leadership, Earth maintained its facade of compliance, while channeling massive resources into secret advancement. The public research centers developed technologies that seemed impressive but non-threatening to Council observers, while the real breakthroughs happened in facilities like this one. How is the Neptune project progressing? Susan asked as they continued their inspection tour. Daniel's face brightened. Better than expected. The first FTL test flight succeeded. We kept within the shadow of Neptune to avoid detection. Just a quick jump of half a light minute, but it worked perfectly. This news made Susan stop in her tracks. Faster-than-light travel was supposed to be centuries beyond human capability, according to Council classifications. Yet here they were, making it work using principles the aliens had dismissed as inefficient. The Council species never looked at quantum entanglement the way we did, Susan said. They were so focused on their bending space method that they missed other possibilities entirely. Later that day, Susan met with her research team in the main laboratory. Dozens of scientists worked at various stations, their faces showing the intensity of people who knew their work mattered. Susan had handpicked each one of them. Dr. Harris, we've analyzed the alien communication device from last year's inspection, said a young physicist named Eric. We believe their transmission method can be improved using our quantum approach. Susan reviewed his findings on a large screen. This is excellent work. If we can develop better communication technology than the Council itself has, it will be another advantage they don't expect us to have. That evening, Susan sat alone in her small apartment within the facility, reviewing data on her personal device. A photo on her desk showed her father standing beside Jack Miller and Melissa Green, the original human representatives to the Council. All three had dedicated their lives to proving the aliens wrong about humanity. Jack and Melissa were elderly now, but still served as advisors to President Warren. Susan's device chimed with an incoming message from Daniel. Shield test scheduled for 0600. Be ready. The next morning, Susan stood in the control room with Daniel and a dozen technicians. Through the reinforced glass, they could see the shield prototype now installed around a small test vehicle. All systems ready, announced the lead technician, initiating power sequence. The shield generator hummed. To life, a barely visible field of energy surrounded the vehicle. First test phase. Basic projectile. Daniel ordered. A mechanical arm fired a metal ball at high speed toward the shielded vehicle. The projectile struck the energy field and stopped as if hitting a solid wall, then fell harmlessly to the floor. Increasing power, said Susan, adjusting controls on her panel. Second test phase. Energy weapon. This time, a laser fired at the shield. The energy beam dispersed across the field, unable to penetrate. The room filled with quiet cheers. Susan felt tears threatening to form in her eyes. This technology, impossible by Council standards for a Class 4 species, could change everything. Final phase, Susan said once the room quieted. Full spectrum assault. Multiple weapons fired simultaneously. Projectiles, energy beams, even sound waves. The shield flickered visibly, but held. Daniel placed a hand on Susan's shoulder. You did. Your father would be proud. 1 week later, the Council inspection team arrived on Earth as scheduled. 3 alien observers, led by a Valerian named Tikalar, followed their human guides through carefully prepared facilities. They nodded their elongated heads at the modest advancements humans had made in allowed fields. Your progress is appropriate. For your classification, Tikalar commented as they toured a public research center. The Council is pleased with human compliance. President Warren smiled diplomatically. We understand our place in the galactic order, she said, the practiced lie coming easily after years of deception. That night, after the aliens retired to their quarters, President Warren met secretly with Susan, Daniel, and other project leaders. They suspect nothing, the president confirmed. The shield technology, the FTL drive, the advanced weapons, all remain our secret. How long do we continue this charade? Asked Daniel. We're already capable of breaking the quarantine boundaries. Our ships could reach the nearest council. Worlds within weeks. President Warren's expression grew serious. We wait until we're ready to reveal ourselves from a position of strength, not defiance. The council must see us as equals, not rebels. Susan shared a meaningful look with Daniel. The next phase of testing begins tomorrow on the planetary shield system. If it works, we could protect all of Earth from any type of assault. The president nodded. Continue your work. Someday, the council will realize how wrong they were about humanity. When that day comes, we'll be ready to take our rightful place among the stars. As Susan walked back to her lab that night, she gazed up at the sky. Somewhere out there, 17 alien species went about their business, believing humans to be safely contained, developing along predictable, unthreatening lines. How surprised they would be to discover the truth. Humanity had turned the Council's dismissal into its greatest motivation, advancing in 27 years what might have taken centuries under normal circumstances. The quiet rebellion continued, one breakthrough at a time. The peace that Earth had known for nearly 3 decades ended on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Susan was reviewing data from the latest shield tests when Daniel burst into her lab, his face unusually pale. You need to see this, he said, activating the large wall screen. Our deep space listening posts picked it up an hour ago. The screen showed a star map of a section of the galaxy controlled by the Council. Several planets were highlighted in red, with data scrolling beside them. What am I looking at? Susan asked, moving closer to the screen. Distress signals, Daniel replied grimly. Massive attacks across multiple Council worlds. Whatever is hitting them is spreading fast. Susan studied the data with growing concern. These signals are using emergency Council protocols. 3 worlds have gone completely silent in the past 2 days. There's more, Daniel said, his voice tight. We intercepted visual feeds from the Valerian homeworld before it went dark. The star map disappeared, replaced by chaotic footage from what appeared to be a city under attack. Susan gasped as she saw crystalline structures moving through the streets, consuming everything in their path. Valarians fled in panic, while their weapons seemed to have little effect on the crystalline beings. What are those things? Susan whispered. The Council communications refer to them as Ravagers, Daniel answered. Apparently, there are previously unknown species from outside Council space. They consume organic matter and energy sources. And they learn quickly. Notice how they adapt whenever the Valerians change weapons. Susan watched the footage in horror until it abruptly cut off. The Council classified us as inferior, but they can't even defend themselves against these Ravagers. There's a Council emergency session happening now, Daniel said. We're intercepting their communications. 3 species are already facing extinction, and the others are beginning evacuations of their home systems. Susan looked at Daniel, understanding the implications. We need to tell President Warren. An emergency meeting was called that afternoon in the secure underground facility beneath the White House. President Lisa Warren sat at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back severely, her face showing the weight of the decision before her. Around the table sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff, key scientists including Susan, and military leaders including Daniel. Let me be clear about what we're discussing, President Warren said after reviewing the intelligence. The same council that classified humanity as inferior and restricted our development is now facing an existential threat. We have technology that might help them, but revealing it would expose our decades of secret advancement. General Martinez, the highest-ranking military officer, spoke first. Madam President, I recommend we maintain our current posture. The Council abandoned us to a limited future. Why should we risk our people to save them? Because if these ravagers consume all Council worlds, Earth will eventually be next, Susan pointed out. And we'd face them alone? Our shield technology and advanced weapons give us advantages the Council doesn't have, Daniel added. But we've never tested them in actual combat against an enemy like this. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for isolation, strengthening Earth's defenses and preparing to face the ravagers alone, if necessary. Others pushed for immediate intervention, seeing an opportunity to prove humanity's worth and secure a better position in the galactic community. Late in the evening, as the discussion reached its peak, an aide rushed into the room. Madam President, we've detected an unauthorized vessel approaching Earth. It's using Council identification codes, but doesn't match any scheduled inspection. The room fell silent as everyone processed this news. Put our forces on alert, the President ordered, but hold fire unless attacked. Let's see what this is about. The unidentified vessel entered Earth orbit and requested permission to dock at the International Space Station. After careful scanning confirmed it carried no weapons, permission was granted. A single alien emerged from the ship, a Valerian. Diplomat named Cato, President Warren, Susan, and Daniel watched the video feed as Cato was escorted to a secure communication room. The alien looked haggard, his normally shimmering blue skin dull and patchy. I come bearing an official message from what remains of the Galactic Council, Cato began, his voice lacking the musical quality typical of his species. The Council faces annihilation from an enemy we cannot defeat. Our defenses have failed. Our fleets are scattered or destroyed. The alien paused, visibly struggling with what came next. The Council was wrong about humans, he admitted, lowering his forearms in a gesture of submission. We need your help to survive. President Warren ended the video feed and looked around the table. It seems the decision has been made for us. The question now is, how do we respond? After a moment of silence, she continued. The Council classified us as inferior and limited our potential. Now they come begging for our help. Part of me wants to remind them of their arrogance. But that's not who we are, Susan said quietly. The President nodded. No, it's not. Humanity has always defined itself by rising to challenges, not by turning away from them. She stood up, her decision made. We will reveal our true capabilities and offer assistance, but not as subordinates. If we help the Council, we do so as equals. The next day, Cato was brought to a secure facility where President Warren met him personally. Susan and Daniel stood nearby, along with Jack Miller and Melissa Green, the original human representatives. To the Council, now in their 70s, but still vital to this historic moment. Ambassador Cato, the President began formally. Earth has received your request for assistance against the Ravager threat. The alien's large eyes showed a mixture of hope and desperation. Then you will help us? The Council would be grateful for any technology or resources you can provide. We will do more than that, President Warren replied. Earth will join the fight directly. Katal's confusion was evident. But your species lacks the necessary advancement. Your classification was wrong, Jack Miller interrupted, stepping forward. You classified us as inferior 27 years ago. You were mistaken. At a signal from the president, a wall panel slid away, revealing a large window overlooking an enormous underground hangar. Cato moved to the window, his four hands pressing against the glass as he stared in disbelief at what lay beyond. Row upon row of advanced warships filled the massive space, each incorporating technologies the Council had deemed impossible for humans. Workers and crews moved among the vessels, preparing them for deployment. How is this possible? Keitel whispered. No Class 4 species could achieve this level of advancement in such a short time. The Council feared our adaptability, Melissa. Green explained gently. You were right to be afraid, but you were wrong about how we would use it. President Warren stepped forward. We offer our help, not as subjects, but as equals. Earth's fleet will launch within 48 hours to engage the Ravagers. In return, the Council must acknowledge humanity's true place among the galactic community. Cato stared at the fleet for a long moment before turning back to the humans. On behalf of the Council, I accept your terms. We were wrong about humanity, and we are fortunate that you are better than we believed. As Cato was escorted back to his ship with news of Earth's intervention, Susan and Daniel remained behind with the president. And so it begins, Daniel said quietly. Susan nodded, watching the preparations below. They classified us as inferior. Now we get to show them just how wrong they were. The human fleet prepared to launch in an atmosphere of tense excitement. 47 warships stood ready in launch bays around the world, each one representing technology that the Council had never imagined humans could develop. Captain Allen Foster walked through the corridors of the flagship, a vessel named Defiance that stretched nearly half a mile in length. At 42, Allen had spent his entire adult life training for a moment that few believed would ever come. Final systems. Check complete, Captain, reported his second-in-command as Allen entered the bridge. All ships report ready for departure. Allen nodded, taking his seat in the command chair. Open a channel to all vessels. The communications officer, Nicole Young, quickly established the connection. Channel open, sir. Allen took a deep breath before speaking. This is Captain Foster to all ships. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of. Many of you have trained your entire lives for a battle we weren't sure would ever come. That day is here. We fight not just for Earth, but for all sentient life threatened by the Ravagers. He paused, looking around at his crew, seeing determination in their eyes. The Council may have underestimated us, but we will not underestimate this enemy. Follow your training, trust your instincts, and remember, humans adapt faster than any species in known space. That's our advantage. Foster out. The fleet launched under cover of darkness, rising through Earth's atmosphere in perfect formation. Council Representative K. Tall watched from the observation deck of the space station, his forearms moving in a gesture of amazement. Never in Council history has a supposedly Class 4 species accomplished what you have done in secret, he said. To President Warren, who stood beside him, perhaps the Council should reconsider its classification system, she replied evenly. Once beyond lunar orbit, the human fleet activated their faster-than-light drives, disappearing into the darkness of space. Their first destination was Proxima Centauri, where reports indicated a major Ravager force was gathering for its next assault. On the bridge of the Defiance, Susan Harris had joined the crew as Chief Science Officer. Her decades of research were now being put to the ultimate test. The shield technology should hold against anything we've seen in the Council footage, she told Captain Foster. But these Ravagers adapt quickly. We need to be ready to modify our defenses if needed. Daniel Wright commanded his own vessel, the Guardian, flying in formation beside the flagship. The two childhood friends now led humanity's first interstellar combat mission, a responsibility neither took lightly. 3 days later, the fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri. The scene that greeted them was worse than expected. A once thriving Council colony world now lay partially consumed, with crystalline structures spreading across its surface like a disease. In orbit, the remains of Council defense ships drifted lifelessly, torn apart by the enemy. Ravager vessels detected, reported the tactical officer. 37 ships of varying sizes approaching from the planet's dark side. All ships defensive. Formation, Allen ordered calmly. Shields at maximum. Do not fire until fired upon. The Ravager ships moved with unsettling coordination, spreading out to surround the human fleet. Their crystalline vessels reflected the light of Proxima Centauri, creating an eerily beautiful display against the blackness of space. They're scanning us, Nicole reported from her communication station, attempting to establish some kind of connection with our systems. Block all external access, Susan advised quickly. Council records show they can hack into computer networks. The first attack came without warning. A pulse of energy shot from the largest Ravager vessel, striking the shields of the human ship at the edge of the formation. The shields flared. Brightly but held. Return fire, all ships, Allen commanded. Standard weapons only? Let's see how they respond before we reveal our full capabilities. The human fleet fired as one, energy weapons and projectiles striking the Ravager ships. Several smaller vessels shattered into crystalline fragments, but the larger ones seemed to absorb the energy, their surfaces glowing briefly before returning to normal. They're adapting, Susan observed, studying the readings on her console. Redirecting our energy weapons to strengthen their own structures. Allen frowned. This is why the Council couldn't defeat them. Change tactics. All ships switch to randomized firing patterns. Don't establish any predictable rhythm they can adapt to. The battle intensified as the human fleet executed chaotic, seemingly random maneuvers that confused the Ravagers' predictive systems. While Council ships had always followed standard battle protocols, making them predictable, human captains improvised and changed tactics constantly. It's working, Nicole reported. Their coordination is breaking down. They can't predict our movements. Despite this advantage, the battle remained fierce. 3 human ships suffered severe damage as the Ravagers adjusted their attacks. Allen watched the tactical display with growing concern. We need more information about their communication methods, he said finally. Susan, what if we sacrifice some of our unmanned vessels to gather data? Susan nodded grimly. It could work. If we send 5 drone ships directly into their formation, we might be able to record how they coordinate their responses. The plan was quickly implemented. 5 unmanned vessels broke from the human fleet, charging directly toward the center of the Ravager formation. As expected, the Ravagers converged on these targets, destroying them one by one. But before they were destroyed, each drone transmitted valuable data back to the fleet. Nicole's team analyzed the results immediately. Captain, we've identified a pattern in their communication network. They use crystalline resonance to maintain their hive mind structure. Susan moved to Nicole's station, reviewing the data herself. This is it, she said, excitement in her voice. Their weakness. Their entire communication system relies on specific frequencies that maintain the crystalline structure. Can we disrupt it? Allen asked. Yes, Susan replied. I can modify our electromagnetic pulse weapons to target those exact frequencies. It should disrupt their hive mind, leaving the individual ships uncoordinated. How long? 20 minutes, Susan said, already heading for the weapons control room. All ships, defensive positions, Allen ordered. Hold the line for 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes stretched into what felt like hours as the human fleet endured increasingly coordinated attacks. 2 more ships were lost, their crews evacuating to nearby vessels. Daniel's ship, the Guardian, took heavy damage, but continued fighting. Finally, Susan's voice came over the comm. Modification complete. All ships can now update their EMP weapons with the new frequency pattern. All vessels, prepare to fire. Modified EMP weapons on my mark, Alan commanded once every ship confirmed the update. Target the largest Ravager vessel first. The human fleet fired simultaneously, invisible pulses of precisely tuned electromagnetic energy washing over the Ravager ships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the crystalline vessels began to move erratically, their perfect coordination dissolving into chaos. It's working, Susan exclaimed. Their hive mind connection is breaking down. Without their coordinated hive intelligence, the individual Ravager ships became vulnerable. The human fleet pressed their advantage, methodically targeting and destroying the now disorganized enemy vessels. When the battle ended, Alan ordered the fleet to maintain position near the planet. Begin search and rescue operations for any Council survivors on the surface or in orbit, he instructed. And send word to Earth. We've won our first battle, but this war has just begun. As rescue teams deployed to the planet's surface, Nicole received an incoming transmission. Captain, we're receiving messages from multiple Council worlds. News of our victory is spreading. They're calling it a miracle. Alan exchanged a look with Susan. Not a miracle, he said quietly. Just humanity. Doing what we do best, adapting and overcoming. 6 months of brutal warfare followed the first victory at Proxima Centauri. The human fleet pushed deeper into Council space, engaging Ravager forces wherever they appeared. Earth's ships suffered losses, but they adapted faster than any Council species could have imagined, modifying their tactics and technology after each encounter. Captain Alan Foster's original fleet of 47 ships had been reduced to 31, but they had destroyed hundreds of Ravager vessels and saved countless alien lives. Susan Harris worked tirelessly aboard the Defiance, constantly improving their weapons and defenses based on battle data. Her resonance disruptors had proven effective against individual Ravager ships, but the central hive consciousness remained elusive. We've tracked their communication patterns back to a location near the galactic core, Susan explained during a strategy meeting. All evidence suggests the Ravager hive consciousness resides there, controlling their forces across the galaxy. Alan studied the star charts on the display table. If we could destroy this central consciousness, would it end the war? In theory, yes, Susan replied. Without the coordinating intelligence, the remaining Ravager forces would become disorganized, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. Daniel Wright, whose ship Guardian had been severely damaged in a recent battle, joined them via holographic projection. The galactic core is heavily defended. Our latest intelligence shows at least 300 Ravager ships guarding the approach vectors. We can't fight through that many, Alan admitted. Not with our remaining fleet. Susan's expression turned thoughtful. What if we don't try to fight through them? What if we send a small team directly to the hive ship itself? Both men looked at her with surprise. How would we get past their defenses? Daniel asked. We've captured several intact Ravager scout vessels, Susan reminded them. I believe we could modify one to carry a small human team. They could approach the hive ship undetected, board it, and plant resonance disruptors at key points throughout the structure. That would be a suicide mission, Alan said quietly. Daniel's holographic image straightened. I'll lead it. Back on Earth, President Warren received the plan with grave concern. The risk is enormous, she told the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But the potential reward is greater. If we can end this war with one decisive strike, we save countless lives across the galaxy. After careful consideration, she approved the mission. 12 volunteers were selected from among Earth's best soldiers and scientists. Daniel would command the team, with Susan joining as the technical expert needed to place the disruptors correctly. The captured Ravager vessel was modified over 2 weeks. Its systems adapted for human use, while maintaining its external appearance. Susan developed new, more powerful resonance disruptors, specifically designed to affect the central hive consciousness. The night before the mission launched, Susan stood in the observation deck of the Defiance, looking out at the stars. Alan joined her, standing silently beside her for several minutes. "Do you ever think about how strange this all is?" Susan asked finally. 27 years ago, the Council told us we were inferior, restricted our development, and left us alone. Now we're their only hope for survival. Alan nodded. "Life has a way of proving everyone wrong, I suppose. If we succeed tomorrow, everything changes for humanity," Susan continued. "No more pretending to be less than we are. First, we have to succeed," Alan reminded her gently. "The fleet will create a diversion to draw away as many Ravager ships as possible, but you and Daniel will still face incredible danger." Susan turned to face him. "We've prepared as much as we can. The rest is up to fate." The next day, the mission began. The human fleet launched a massive attack against Ravager positions near the galactic core, drawing their defensive ships away from the hive ship. Using this distraction, the disguised Ravager vessel, carrying Daniel, Susan, and the rest of the team, slipped through the thin defenses dot as they approached the massive crystalline structure of the Ravager hive ship. Susan felt a mixture of awe and dread. The vessel was enormous, easily 20 times the size of Earth's largest warship. Its surface glittered with countless crystalline formations, each pulsing with inner light. "We're being scanned," reported the pilot. "Their systems are trying to communicate with ours. Send the response codes we extracted from the captured vessels," Daniel ordered. "Let's hope they still work." 10 seconds passed before the pilot exhaled in relief. They'd accepted our codes. "We're clear to approach Docking Bay 7. The team suited up in specially designed armor as their ship docked with the hive vessel. Susan checked her pack, containing the resonance disruptors, one final time. "Remember the plan," Daniel told the team. "We place these devices at 7 key junction points throughout the ship. Susan's data suggests these are the critical nodes where the hive consciousness maintains its connection to all Ravager forces. Once placed, we have 30 minutes to return to our ship and get clear before detonation," Susan added. "The resulting cascade should destroy the central consciousness." They moved through the alien vessel cautiously, encountering strange crystalline beings that seemed more like maintenance drones than warriors. The team split into 3 groups to place the disruptors more quickly, with Susan and Daniel taking the most challenging central location dot as they approached the core of the ship. Susan's instruments detected increasingly powerful energy signatures. "We're getting close to the central chamber," she whispered to Daniel. "The hive consciousness should be just ahead." They entered an enormous spherical room filled with swirling crystalline structures that formed complex, ever-changing patterns. At the center floated a massive crystal formation that pulsed with blinding light. "That's it," Susan breathed. "The physical form of the hive consciousness." Daniel checked the time. "The other teams should be placing their disruptors now. We need to set ours and get out." Susan moved forward cautiously, approaching one of the main support structures. As she prepared to place the disruptor, the crystal formation at the center of the room flared brightly. Crystalline tendrils began extending toward them. "It senses us," Daniel warned, raising his weapon. "Hurry." Susan worked quickly, attaching the disruptor to the support structure and activating it. "Done. Let's move." They ran back the way they came, the crystalline tendrils pursuing them through the corridors. Similar reports came in from the other teams. All disruptors had been placed, but the hive consciousness was now fully aware of their presence and responding aggressively. As they raced back toward their ship, Susan received confirmation that all teams had returned except for one. Team 3 is trapped 2 levels below us, she told Daniel. They can't reach the extraction point. Without hesitation, Daniel changed direction. We're not leaving them behind. They found Team 3 pinned down by crystalline formations that had grown to block their path. Daniel and Susan helped clear a route, but time was running dangerously short. 10 minutes until detonation, Susan warned as they finally reached their ship. We need to launch now. The disguised Ravager vessel detached from the hive ship and accelerated away as quickly as possible. Behind them, the massive crystalline structure began to pulse erratically as the resonance disruptors activated. 5 minutes to minimum safe distance, the pilot reported tensely. It's going to be close. Susan watched the countdown timer with growing anxiety. Just as they reached the calculated safe distance, the hive ship erupted in a spectacular display of light and crystalline fragments. The shockwave hit their vessel, tossing everyone against the restraints of their seats. Status report. Daniel called out once the ship stabilized. Minor damage, but we're operational, the pilot responded. And look, the Ravager fleet is breaking formation. They're moving erratically, without coordination. Susan checked her instruments, a smile spreading across her face. It worked. The hive consciousness is destroyed. The remaining Ravager forces, now disorganized and vulnerable, were quickly dispatched by the combined human and council fleets. 3 weeks later, representatives from all remaining council species gathered on Earth for a formal ceremony. President Warren stood proudly as Kadal, now the acting head of the Galactic Council, approached the podium. On behalf of all council species, I formally reclassify humanity as a Class 1, Guardian species, the highest designation in our records. The audience erupted in applause as Susan, Daniel, and Alan accepted the honor on behalf of Earth. We will join your council, President Warren said when the applause subsided, but on one condition: all arbitrary class distinctions end today. Every species has unique contributions to offer. Cadel bowed in agreement. The council has learned its lesson about underestimating others. The new galactic charter will recognize the equal potential of all sentient life. 6 months later, a new exploration vessel prepared for its maiden voyage. Captain Nicole Young addressed her mixed crew of humans and various alien species on the bridge. When we were classified as inferior, many humans wanted revenge, she told them. Instead, we proved our worth through our actions. We saved the galaxy not because we were superior, but because we refused to accept limitations placed upon us. She looked out at the stars visible through the view screen. Now we begin a new chapter, not as rulers of the galaxy,